Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kendra Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have an anonymous female left behind and forward-moving spouse with a bomb drop of February 1st, 2023 and a date of marriage of 1998. She has a boomerang who is a low-energy wallower. And just so you know, my voice is going out as I'm quite a bit congested, so I'm going to work my way through this, but I might sound a bit scratchy. This post originally came from Facebook. So I am probably going to pause the recording a few times and go into Facebook and bring some comments from there back and use them because there were some good comments that I would like to discuss. So she says, people recommend that we don't talk about the relationship through the crisis. Rather, we should keep an open door and let our MLCer lead. We meet them where they are. I'm approaching the 2-year mark from the first bomb drop, and he's been gone from the house for a year. There's definitely an emotional affair going on, and I have no confirmation of a physical affair. It seems the emotional affair is dwindling as he has more time available to himself. He's very responsive to all of my reach outs, which are few. He has seen that I will carry on without him and will give him his divorce. I've shown patience while throwing a rare truth dart. I've only reached out for business items over the last 8 months, which he is very receptive to, and then he likes to linger. I have not entertained superficial conversations and oftentimes don't respond to superficial texts. I've gotten indications that he's either at the end of replay or in depression or withdrawal. He invites my time, comfort, and intimacy. I'm considering playing a more active role towards connection should I text him. And on Facebook, she actually had a sample text. So I wanted to go over that sample text as well. The sample text was, she was saying, is this a good idea? She said, I've been reflecting a lot on us and praying for clarity. I miss you and the connection we've always shared. I'd love to talk when you're ready, even just to check in. Let me know what you think. So the first thing I want to say about that particular text is that particular text is way too much, because it's, I miss you. I miss our connection. I'd like us to talk, because now clearly we're going to be talking about the connection. One of the questions I had, though, is you said that you haven't been responding to superficial or starting superficial conversations. You haven't been responding to superficial texts. Maybe you could start more lightly by doing things like that. Small talk. How's the weather? Might seem superficial, but that's kind of how we get started. So try that instead. Try starting with things that feel superficial, or they might feel superficial, because you start a conversation and the relationship talk comes in naturally as part of the conversation. So general advice is, yes, don't have relationship talks, but it's really not quite like that. It's not don't have them, it's don't bring them up. Chuck and I had plenty of relationship talks. And yeah, sometimes I would try and steer the conversation away from that, especially when I remembered don't have these things and you'd get scared. But they came. They came naturally in parts of the conversation. He talked about it. He talked about it, so I'd talk about it. And if I had been obvious in him away, he might have noticed that and wondered. So you can have them. Your MLCer might want you to, but start having conversations that are friendship conversations. And parts of that do involve superficial contexts. Okay, so it's okay to be superficial sometimes. So don't worry as much about that. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to look at was the suggestion of let them come back to you. However, a little flirting above more than friends doesn't hurt. I was going to look at that one. There was quite a few back and forths with this one, and I thought you had a great response. You said this would generate physical intimacy that you've been, and I get that. So if he's willing for physical intimacy, but it's the emotional or the discussions, he doesn't want to have chats and talks, okay? I get it. And so you've tried to put a boundary up on that. So then the suggestion, the next response came back, okay, that's a tricky question then. How about this? Casual coffee or dinner dates? Make it clear that's what they're about. Yourselves, again, and what you may have been doing well. Avoid the relationship talk. Still let it flow naturally. Remember, silence is powerful as well. Don't feel the need to fill it. Now, I like that part especially because that's really hard. It's really hard not to fill those silent gaps. So that's just for everybody out there, a good piece of advice. But I also like the idea of just get-togethers, superficial. Hey, would you like to go out? If he's willing. Or is that too much for him? Would it be too obvious that this is a casual date? If it would, then he might not want it. But we'll see. But then you said that's sort of what you were doing. You present, the recommendation he presented is what I facilitated for the 6 months after the first bomb drop, and then you got bomb drop, the second one. I don't really go into second bomb drops, but you got another like, hey, I'm not into this type of thing. Okay. And you didn't know about MLC. Then you retried this from later on. And he was receptive, but it wasn't moving forward. Okay, so now I want to talk about that for a minute. It wasn't moving your situation forward like you wanted it to. There's a problem right there. We have this agenda, don't we? Hey, you know what, buddy? We need to get going on this. See, the situation that is going to move forward or progress is midlife crisis. Our agenda of fixing the marriage is not the situation that is going to progress. Okay? That is in the box. That is the thing that is in a box on a shelf that you're going to protect because they're going to try and ruin it, whether they tried deliberately or whether they are going to be doing it not deliberately. Okay, so you're protecting it. We're not trying to save our marriage right now. We're trying to preserve our marriage. And preserve might be a synonym for save, but saving being we're doing active things. Preserving, we're going to put it in a safe place until we can take it out again and then work on the saving things. Put the verbs in it. But right now, it's just in a stasis. Okay. And when you said, oh, it wasn't moving the needle, it really wasn't making a difference. You're right. Because he's in a midlife crisis. I don't want you using tactics and strategies. That's where the problem is. And that's where I'm hesitant at saying, yeah, go ahead, send this text. And I don't want you sending that specific text that you suggest, that you had first put on Facebook anyway. But I do want you, if you don't need to be in a strict no contact due to cake eating and abuse, then yeah, I want you maintaining and keeping some level of relationship and back and forth as long as he's also doing that and willing to. Definitely. If you don't ever have contact, how do you ever reconcile, right? You rebuild a friendship. But you're trying to control it a little bit too much in some of those agendas. And that's what I'm seeing, okay? Okay, let me continue with one of the comments that he had after that. So let me pause. Okay, basically it was just another little piece of the same idea, but you had talked about how you had already done that and it wasn't moving it forward. You said, however, our conversations were always very superficial and never moved us forward. I felt like I was supporting the, and here's the next piece, we can be best friends dialogue, and basically, without going further. And so I stopped being friends with benefits. Yeah, I'm all for that. I'm all for stopping the friends with benefits. But I don't want you to think about it in that way. I don't want you to think about this as, hey, we have to have this over here. We can either do this. We can be friends with benefits. And some people are great with that, actually. There have been situations where they're great with, hey, we'll have our hookup because it can keep some of the connections going. And if that's for those who are willing to do it, great. If there's not an alienator involved, if there's not another sexual partner involved, there is choice, but there's so many other STD type of things that could be going on as well that I don't advise either way, but I want you to be very wary. But I'm all for the boundary on that, okay? So it's not simply about putting your marriage in a box, but it's also, I get that you don't want the friends with benefits. You want to have this respectful relationship in this context. And that's one of the things I eventually told Chuck, is I said, I will not be friends with you outside of a marital context. It's just not going to happen. And that's what you're basically saying. It's not that there's anything wrong with friends with benefits. It's not. It's that that's not what you want from him. Okay, let me look a little bit more and see what else. Okay, the rest of the comments are really basically going about being, give it to God, and being patient and not trying to control the situation, which are all in line with good advice. So that is the next thing I want you to think about, is how much you are trying to control the situation, even though from the literal actions you're doing, you're like, hey, I'm not calling him that much. I'm not doing that much. But in your brain, you're like, okay, what's going on? What should I do now? It's all part of the plan, isn't it? It's not doing much is part of your plan. And what I want you to do is I want you to figure out how to relax into that. So that instead of it being part of a plan, it's just part of what life is, okay? Because when it's part of a plan, you're watching it and you're hoping and you're paying attention. You're watching, waiting for the pot to boil. And there could be anxiety with that. And it's not quite detachment yet. So relax into this phase of, hey, you know what? He is very responsive and he's a friend and he's willing to contact you and he's willing to have lighthearted conversations with you. And that's good because that's comforting. That is comfortable. And let it grow from there. But you want it to feel natural. That doesn't mean you shouldn't send texts that are, would you like to do something? Or, hey, how are you feeling? Or just checking in. The text you really want to be careful of is where you say you miss him. Now, if you were on vacation and you're just like, hey, miss ya, wishing you were here. But even then, I wouldn't want it in text because I want your voice to know that it's a vacation, lighthearted thing rather than the other. Because if I'm the MLCer and I've left somebody and I get an I miss you text, even though I know I've been a clinging boomerang and there's been this dialogue back and forth, that makes me scared. It makes me nervous. I think, oh my, I've been thinking that same thing too, but I'm not ready for this. Oh no, I'm going to get sucked back in. What if I can't do it? What if I fail at this? Wait a second. What if she does? What if we go back to old patterns? And it's going to make me more anxious possibly. So I don't want that. I want everything to come out naturally. When we finally say, I miss you, it feels like a natural thing that happened within a conversation that had already been ongoing or something that had been growing again, rather than just an out of a blue text that wasn't part of anything else that says, we got along really well together and I miss you and I'd like to reconnect that because I missed the connection we had. Can we talk? I mean, you say even just for the check-in, but really it's about more. And I think that's just going to make him too nervous. So sure, you've texted him for other stuff. Go keep up with it. Keep it lighthearted right now. And I know that feels superficial, but friendship in many ways can be superficial. Not all friendships, but in the beginning, friendships can be superficial compared to the intimacy, the intimate level of a relationship. And I'm not talking physical intimacy, just the emotional level that you have with your spouse. There's friendship, and there's the depth that you go to. And so when you move that back to friendship, that just feels superficial right there. It's okay. Let it be. Let it happen that way. Okay? So I think I lost track a little in the midway there, because with this I'm also getting, my brain is a little foggy. So I hope that, and with the video. So if you do have any questions where I myself lost track, just let me know. Okay? And I will see everybody in the next question.